and then we'll share the recording afterwards. So we're delighted to welcome you back to our BIM Bites program this year. Previously we ran it in 2021, so delighted to have you all back with us, and most importantly to have Ross and our speakers back joining us today. You'll have received your welcome email from Silvana on my team, so you can see Silvana online here. So you'll have received your links and your schedule with all of the links for the forthcoming dates. If there's any changes to those dates or to those links, we'll be in constant contact with you by email as well, so don't worry, you won't miss anything. But if you do have any questions throughout the duration of the course, you can contact us at Education and we'll be able to come back to you. So I'll pop our email address in the chat box here in this meeting as well. So if we have anything to let you know, if you're having any difficulties joining the sessions, just let us know and we'll troubleshoot and get you sorted as well. As I said, the session is being recorded, so we'll share those recordings with you afterwards. And then any SCSI members will have those CPT hours uploaded to their member record as well after the live sessions. So Ross, that's enough for me. They're here to hear from yourself this morning. So over to you.
Super, thanks, Ruth. Hey everyone, I guess, welcome back again to BIM Bites. We're regurgitating what we did in 2021. We're hoping kind of the industry has moved on in terms of exposure to digital projects. The new requirements coming out of the public authority next year will have an impact on all public projects over the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So I think it's timely actually that we kick this off again. This session is really kind of an introduction to the BIM Bites. We're going to talk about kind of digitalization, and our heading for today is The Future is Digital. I guess over the last number of years, we have seen quite a big growth here in Ireland in terms of the conversation around BIM and digital projects. Not every project is a digital project today. I think the reason for that, in my opinion, is we don't have a national mandate, but that is coming, as we know, next year. So we're going to have this push towards fully digital project deliverables, and I think the QSs are key to these deliverables in terms of quality of information and the collaboration between design teams, and then the connection between project design data and procurement and further out into the industry. But the future is digital, regardless of whether we like it or not. Quick introduction. My name is Ross Griffin. I'm the founder of a digital PQS practice, Cosmos. Our head office is in Copenhagen in Denmark. We've been working, or I have been personally working on digital projects for almost a decade now, and all the projects we work on are digital projects: BIM Execution Plans, automated quantities from 3D models for cost planning, bill of quantities, etc. And we also have a SaaS company, software as a service, the Fifth Dimension, which kind of tries to digitize our workflows from a quantity surveying perspective through pre-construction, post-contract, from a client standpoint, so the collection of data, dashboard analytics, that kind of thing. Enough about me, but let's get into this. So digitization, we have a couple of explanations here, some terminology in relation to digital projects and what the pathway is from our perspective, moving from the analog old paper-based through to fully digitization automation. But digitization is the conversion of text, pictures, and or sound into a digital form that can be processed by a computer. Today, we can all argue and agree that, we're working digitally. We're all working off our laptops. We're all working with probably Microsoft and in particularly Excel. So we're working in a digital form as it is right now. But I would say that we're not utilizing that information or digital possibilities enough. Our next step would be the digitalization. It is the leveraging of digital information to improve business competitiveness. So while our information is digital in PDF, Word, Excel, emails, Teams, WhatsApp, you name it, are we really leveraging that information to improve business competitiveness? And the next step following the digitalization is the transformation, is the optimization or evolvement of a business because of digitalization. So moving your business forward because of the analytical information and decision making around the data or information that you have within your business. So on the right, you can see digitize info, organize info, automate process, streamline the process, and then transformation. So in the next number of years, we're all going to go through this, and transformation is where we need to get to in order to stay competitive as QS practices, but also as QSs as individuals. A lot of our processes, in our opinion, will become automated over the next number of, you could say years, but maybe decades, depending on how advanced the industry is in the country. I would say that from a Danish perspective, they're about 10 years ahead of us in terms of digitalization and transformation. But the construction industry is a challenging one, as we all know. When we compare information flows and connectivity in different industries, we can see construction, the red indicates connectivity, and we can see construction, we're brutally unconnected. We're still operating in a very traditional manner. If you reflect on the projects you guys are currently working on today, you know, how many of them have automated tendering processes? How many of you are using automated platforms for sending out bills of quantities? Are those bills of quantities connected to 3D models? Are those 3D models being sent with the tender material to the contractors? Have you automated tender analysis? Have you automated monthly evaluations, automated payments, et cetera, et cetera? So we're brutally unconnected, and well, the only way is up for us, really, I would say. You can see manufacturing and especially the financing service, well, they have really come on in the last probably 2 to 3 decades, I would say. All our banking is now online. Eventually, all our process from a construction perspective will be online also. This is the way we're moving, I would say. It is interesting, though, there is quite a lot of different platforms, quite a lot of different technologies available to us, and to help us with digitization. And we have a note on the top there, remember, not digitalization, just digitization, digitizing the information that we use on a daily basis. And of course here, Microsoft with their Office 365 offers a huge range of different possibilities for us. But we can say that there's a QS's favorite out there, and that's Excel. And I would be surprised if there's any of us not using Excel on our daily routines and our daily projects. It's certainly one of the most powerful tools that we have available to us as quantity surveyors. It offers a whole pile of challenges in terms of its flexibility, human error and all that, in terms of the quality. But Excel is surely our #1 tool today from a QS's perspective. So what are we going to do about this in the future? Our opinion is Excel is the pen and paper of the past. Often it's unstructured. Often you can't analyze the information. Often it's different standards and structures from project to project, from company to company, or even department to department internally, depending on the people you're working with. So while Excel is a digital tool, it doesn't offer us the value of digitization. Power BI that has come in recently, of course, is helping with that in terms of being able to visualize the information within Excel and allow you to at least use the power of those visuals to represent the information that we're managing. But that being said, a lot of the information is unstructured within organizations, and it's certainly within the industry, but that's changing. When we consider the information split, we would say that, you know, a large proportion today is PDFs. We're still sending PDFs to our clients, whether it's monthly reports, cost plans, cost estimates, bills of quantities. Our information flow is still PDF, and PDF is a dead communication tool. You can't analyze that information within PDFs. It's becoming more possible now with the help of algorithms and AI, but it is still challenging for us. So the intention is that we will need to move away from PDFs as much as we can into more cloud-based integrated solutions. And of course, on the right-hand side, BIM is still a very small part of our day-to-day workings on our projects. So the intention with this message really is we need to be considering how we're working on our day-to-day. What processes are we currently kind of operating within our businesses, and how can we improve those processes by implementing a software to digitize the process, or really considering the process as a whole and restructuring it using tools and technologies if possible. If we consider, again, our 2 seconds there as it moves on. If we consider what we do on our projects, the information is very disjointed, as you can see in this visual here. The project being the center, our design teams use Revit or any other type of 3D design software. It could be ArchiCAD, Tekla, you name it. PDFs, as we keep mentioning, are a very important, still relevant form of communication. Excel, Microsoft Project, PowerPoint, you name it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this information is disconnected, and it doesn't read amongst each other. So what we're really missing here is the quality of that information and its connectivity from project phase to project phase. We still consider our projects as a linear process. We start at the start, we end at the end. What happens to the information that we collect during the project? How do we use that information in the next projects or for future decision making? And in reality, cost is linear as well, because we follow the same process in terms of project delivery. So cost becomes linear, and we really do not and struggle in our industry to connect project information historically to future projects. And I would say that not only is it linear, we produce many different types of documents during that project lifecycle from a commercial perspective, whether it's cost plans and estimates or BOQs, final accounts, monthly valuations, claims, letters, you name it. We produce a hell of a lot of information, and all of that information is somewhat disjointed and disconnected. So we're losing a lot of value from a quantity surveying perspective in terms of information that we create. That information, are we able to analyze it for better decision making on the project, but also for future projects? So again, it's considering really our workflows, our internal processes, what tools are available that can just digitize a manual workflow if you really want something simplified. Or are we really considering how we deliver projects, and do we need to alter how those projects are delivered? We can get in, of course, into the conversation about contractual constraints and market needs and clients' requirements and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, if we don't have it in our head that we need to alter our process to become more digital, streamlined and automated, then we're really going to have a challenge in the next number of years when it becomes a requirement for our clients, especially as we become more globalized. We pride ourselves in Ireland of selling our construction capability, experience and knowledge abroad on the global market. But the global market is moving ahead from a digital perspective. We need to either now catch up or begin to take lead. So how do we improve our budget accuracy as well as our project control while also storing valuable commercial information along the project lifecycle? This is really the key for digitization: improving our accuracy, storing information, reusing that information to become more accurate in our decision making, to become much quicker in our decision making, but along the project lifecycle through that entire delivery period, as well as for future projects. And construction, as we mentioned a minute ago, in relation to its connectivity, is extremely poor. But in terms of its digitization, this graph is quite old. It's a McKinsey from 2015. Construction is second from the bottom, and I'm sure that everybody has seen this before. Second from the bottom in terms of digitization, one above agriculture and hunting. So any type of improvement, any type of automation, any type of change in manual process to a digital workflow is going to have a huge effect. And we're not talking about companies changing their entire business models or in changing their entire company workflows. We're talking about small incremental changes over a long period in order to get teams on board, to get businesses to transition. So people become quite insecure when we talk about digital transformation, but we're not talking about overnight transformation. It is a long road, and it does take time to implement. So small incremental changes will have such huge impacts, that low-hanging fruit context and on your business, for your clients, and especially on the quality of information that you can achieve and take from your projects. We need more digitalization, leveraging of digital information to improve business competitiveness. So as we move towards into better quality 3D modeling, we will become much more, I say, quality driven in terms of automated quantity extraction. That will reduce time in terms of manual measurement. That will mean you'll have more time to invest in other aspects of your advisory role to your client, whether it's risk management or change management. Using that competitiveness in your business will drive value for your clients and value for your business. So we need to consider again how we work and how we're able to improve that process on our projects today. So here we say, like, so that we can connect how we work, connect the information we are working with, and analyze it so we can become more accurate, improve, and ultimately automate. Today, we need to automate a lot of our QS processes, I would say. And this all feeds in as well to the availability of skilled personnel. We know it's super difficult in the current climate globally to find quantity surveyors, competent quantity surveyors. Any QS that has this capability and knowledge, they will be eaten up in the industry straight away, because it is so rare. The more we can automate, the less bodies we need to do those manual measurements, to do those monthly valuations. It means we can still have the same amount of output, but with just fewer people. So we can grow our businesses with less people, especially in the type of market that we're in. So by focusing again on our existing processes, and we've just identified a number here, whether it's budgets, estimates, cash flows, risk management, contract, invoicing, benchmarking, et cetera, we need to somehow connect these so that they speak to each other along the project life cycle, so that when we prepare budgets and then develop cost plans and estimates along the different design stages, we can link those back to the budget, analyze that information quite quickly for our clients, tell them where elements have increased or decreased, how they link to the change management process, how that will affect the risk process, cash flows, et cetera, et cetera. All of these linkages will improve the analysis of information and ultimately improve how we advise our clients. So we need to go from this linear process to a more circular process. And I don't mean circular in terms of sustainability. That will come as well along with the life cycle assessments in LCA. But a circular in terms of information and circular in terms of data, making sure that we can transfer information, the hard work we've done on the earlier stages, to the next stage. So we're not repeating tasks. An example would be if we manually measure a foundation at concept design stage, at that gateway, and we go back at technical design, and if we've manually measured, we need to re-manually measure the same foundation again. Whereas if we work closely with the design teams in developing the 3D models, we can link and map the models to our cost breakdown structures in whatever platform you have, so that when you get your technical design, a lot of the information and work you have done can become automated, meaning that you're not looking at the entire project, you're just looking at what changed. So that link and circularity of information becomes super important on the project, but more importantly becomes super important across projects, across portfolios, for our clients, especially if we've multi-asset owners. But if we have QS practices, this is where databases and standardization becomes super important, so that we can analyze many different projects across projects, horizontally and also vertically down along through the information levels. So closing the loop on project cost circularity needs to become a focus point for us as QSs. Of all the companies I've worked with in the past, we all talked about databases and having databases of cost information, but it was always a struggle to find those databases of information. And I'm not sure things have changed that much over the last 20 years. So cost data is becoming even more valuable to us now, because of the ability to standardize through global standards like ICMS, as well as we now have tools available to us that we might not have had 10, 20 years ago to allow us to automate and standardize that information. So it's not just at project level that we're talking about here. It's at business level, regional level, and national level. If we begin as an industry to standardize and consider our process as quantity surveyors more as data managers, it means that we'll be able to leverage the information and data that we collect on our project on a regional and national level in order to advise our clients across all of their future projects. I kind of always use the example of, imagine if Dublin City Council had collected all their schools over the last 10 or 15 years or 20 years even, in terms of the cost information, all standardized, all digitized, all available on a cloud-based solution, so we can get access to it for future decision making on cost drivers, but also now with the requirement around carbon and the cost impact of carbon, we would become super efficient in that information or that advice we'd be able to give for future projects. The same for private developers, multi-asset owners. This standard approach to cost information will allow us to be more accurate and much quicker in giving that advice to our clients. So we can improve our industry and profession. That's ultimately what we're our goal here. If we don't kind of start this journey, and I must mention that we gave this same presentation 2 years ago, and the message hasn't changed. If we don't start this journey as a discipline and profession, the big companies will write us out of the future in terms of coding. They have developers writing codes to automate bills of quantities, automate monthly evaluations, even contracts, claims, all of this stuff. Not necessarily in the level of granularity we like, but nevertheless, they're still writing this and automating this. So it's up to us really to design the future for us as QSs. So we're going to talk a little bit about BIM here. And BIM is the digitization and management of existing workflows and information using digital tools. BIM is not a tool, it's a process. And it's digitizing the workflows. Many people think BIM is Revit. It's not. BIM is many different things, and it stretches across all disciplines and full project lifecycle delivery. Very simple graph here that we like to talk about, taking our manual processes, and I've mentioned it a few times in this presentation already. Looking at our manual processes, standardizing those processes, standardizing the information, then digitizing it, and ultimately we'll be able to automate in the future. A lot of what we're doing at the moment, we're looking at our manual processes and we're going straight to digitize. We're not standardizing, and standardizing becomes key to automation. Without standardization, we can't have automation. So I would advise anybody that are looking at their manual process to try and standardize them before they digitize them. So if we reflect back on Excel, we've taken manual bills of quantities on paper and measurement on paper, and we've gone directly to Excel, or we've gone directly to the softwares available. We haven't actually standardized how we do that. We haven't standardized the information structure, whether it is the cost breakdown structures or bills of quantities. Yes, we have our national standards, but if you look within organizations and bills of quantities that are being produced, they're all slightly different. So have we really standardized? And again, ultimately, we're looking at trying to automate as much of the administration and kind of useless processes that we currently have today, so that we can become more efficient and advise our clients more efficiently, give them real value. So BIM has defined in dimensions. I'm sure we're all aware of this now. You know, BIM has been around for 20, 30 years. We've altered some of the visuals here because a lot of the visuals will show the dimensions in sequence, in numerical order. We don't believe that they follow a numerical order. 4 doesn't follow 3, 5 doesn't follow 4, etc. I think they're all mutually inclusive. If you change something in the 5D, if you change something in the budget, it has a direct effect on the 3D design material. It has a direct effect on time. It has a direct effect on whether it's sustainability or operations. So all are mutually inclusive, and these are all managed by different stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle. I would argue, especially on the pre-construction, especially on the client side. You can argue that when the contractor comes on board, they take the responsibility for a lot of these, but still the client has full responsibility to set the projects up, to set the contracts up, and the processes that will ultimately deliver project success. So mutually inclusive of the dimensions, in our opinion, and we often say that the 5th dimension comes before anything. You prepare a high-level budget for your client on day one without any design information. Perhaps you might have just total gross area, or you might have just a budget of what they could provide. So we argue that the 5th dimension or the cost element comes before any of the others. Depends on the project, of course. And BIM, in the information in the entire life cycle of a project, different stakeholders have different responsibilities throughout the process, but the ultimate aim here is the transfer of information. So if the design team are preparing design information, 3D models, we should be able to transfer that good quality, high level quality information to the next stakeholder group to take over. That could be the quantity surveyor to do their automated quantities when preparing the cost plans, builds the quantities. It could be to the contractor, so the contractor doesn't have to redesign the building again. Often you hear today, when the contractor takes the design material post contract signing, they often remodel everything because the models in terms of information aren't good enough. We need to get away from that because it's double tasking. It's waste of energy, time, effort. We need to make sure that information transfer, you're transferring high quality information. I believe that the quantity surveyor has a huge role to play in that, especially in the pre-construction, because it's the quantity surveyor, they're the first discipline to take information and use it and process it for a purpose other than design. Prior to that, it's different design stakeholders that transfer their information, whether it's the structural engineer, the architect, the MEP engineers. They're just sharing information from a design perspective. We're the first discipline to really look at that information from a contractual, commercial, and usability perspective. If we can process the information before it goes to the marketplace, then the contractor will have no issues in taking over responsibility for those models and information, because the quality will already be in it. And this is where we believe that the QS discipline is heading in the future. But what's interesting on some of these BIM maturity strategies, if you recognize this one on BIM level 2 from the UK, you can see that BIM level 2 is a 4D, 5D BIM implementation in 2010. I believe that hasn't even happened yet. Some of you guys, QSs, will argue that, well, as contractors, we are integrating 5D, 4D, and 5D in our process for delivering the execution. That's a probability for sure. But look from the client's perspective, because at the end of the day, the client, they sit on top of everything. They own the project. Are we really delivering to the client a BIM level 2, or for that matter, a BIM level 3, which is what we're now moving towards, which is sustainability, integrated sustainability. So it's a bit misleading here. I think we haven't really progressed as we should have, but hopefully the new mandates coming out next year will really drive the entire industry on as a whole. But our experience is that BIM is forcing integrated design delivery or integrated project delivery, where the QS and cost manager work with the design team and design together. And what I mean by that is not the design of the building in terms of our traditional drawing output, but the design of information within that 3D model or within that design output. In order for us to get that high quality design information that we just talked about in the previous slides, we have to be able to work with the design team in order for them to understand what we need and for us to understand their process. How do they design? At what moment in the project lifecycle will we get a high quality structural design? At what moment in the project lifecycle will we get a high quality electrical design? We need to understand that so that we can also guide our cost planning, our estimates and our advice to our clients in relation to that. So the QS now becomes a very integral part of the design process, in our opinion. As I mentioned, we'll go back to the QS being the first non-design discipline to process that information before it ever goes to market. That's where that quality assurance comes in. Rather than quantity surveying, it's quality surveying that is now happening. And this means that it's not the QS that quantifies, it's the design team. And what I mean by that is it's the design teams that actually prepare the geometries and the information in the models. It's the structural engineer that prepares that foundation, that strip foundation. And in the information embedded in the model will tell you the geometries and qualities around that strip foundation. All we're doing as QSs is mapping that information to our cost breakdown structures, our bills of quantities, etc., and qualifying that information within the 3D model is correct in relation to what specifications are telling us, etc. So when we say that the QS doesn't quantify anymore, it's the architect and engineer, it's not necessarily taking out a ruler to measure. It's really that they are producing information that we're able to then use without having to alter that information. Prior to that, we would have, from drawings, we would have to prepare the quantities using on-screen 2D measurement, develop that geometry from the 2D in order to be able to quantify for our cost plans. But the more and more we get into digital design, the more and more information will be available to us, the more we'll be able to automate this process. So we go from a quantity surveyor to a quality surveyor in our opinion. And it's also important for us to understand that each of these disciplines design their models differently. Architectural and construction is element-based. Electrical and mechanical is system-based. So elements based in a system, whereas the arc and con are elements. They're just elements, whether it's a column, a facade, a window. But electrical is cable trays within a system. It's cabling within a system. Ventilation is ducting within a HU system. So we need to, how they model and how they allocate references to their particular elements differ, just to be aware. We get into more of that detail later in the BIM Bites on how we measure architecture and MEP. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get away from the unconnected information, that diagram visual we looked at later on, earlier on the left, and somehow connect it so that it communicates to each other, and we can analyze that information in rapid time for our clients if we ever needed, for example, to do a benchmark analysis on schools in Dublin. Because we have all the information of all the schools in the last 20 years, we can analyze that super quick because it's in the same standard, same structure, same level of information. And that's where we need to get to in terms of the future of quantity surveying, I could say. So the final frontier for us as a discipline and where we're going to go in the future really is data analytics will become absolute key to everything we do. Artificial intelligence will drive further qualities within analytics. Augmented reality and machine learning will add additional layers to our advice and delivery to our clients. And a lot of the data analytics we're currently doing, a lot of kind of what we do, a lot of people are using Power BI as I mentioned before, Power BI is allowing us to visualize a lot of the data that we create within Excel. But it's also shadowing over the fact that as an industry, we're not standardizing as a whole. We're standardizing within our project, maybe within that particular delivery within our project. And Power BI is then allowing us to at least visualize and analyze that information. But if we look across our organizations as a whole, are we really standardizing as a whole? If we look across the industry as a whole, are we really standardizing as a whole? And right now we're not. We have the availability to do it with ICMS coming in a number of years ago, and it being mandated next year. We would hope that ARM5, when it's released, will allow us to work more in a standardized way and improve our ability to work with 3D models from a measurement perspective. That remains to be seen. But I would say that we're all somewhat working in an analytical way today. Our reports will have graphs and stuff on it, but are we really getting the value out of the information that we create on our projects? And in reality, probably not. So the more we standardize, the more we analyze, the more we'll be able to automate. And artificial intelligence and machine learning will help us with this ability. It will be doing the task we're doing today manually, moving numbers from one Excel sheet to another to gather benchmarking information so that we can analyze it. If we're already collecting it in an automated way on our projects, we won't need to move those numbers anymore. And I think augmented reality is quite an interesting one. Heat mapping on costs within 3D models. So showing the client where the cost drivers are on your 3D models on a heat map is something really interesting in terms of augmented reality. And maybe allowing the client to see, as well as LCA, heat mapping LCA in 3D models will also allow the client to get a better understanding of how their building is affecting our climate and how their building is affecting their pocket. So there's going to be lots happening in these areas over the next decade. And I think we should all be thinking about now how we can, at least on a simple matter, standardize our current workflows so that we can digitize them, so that we're prepared for this stuff when it does come down the road. So how can we do this? Yeah, we analyze the data for all our clients and our projects. We're doing that anyway to some degree. If we're not doing it on our projects, we should start thinking about how we do it. Once we're able to standardize that data, we can predict deviations in time, cost, risk, change, etc., etc. Once we have that standard information, it becomes easy for us to understand who is instigating the largest amount of change on our project. In pre-construction, is it the engineer? Is it the architect? Is it the client? Is it the quantity surveyor? Right now, a question for all of you: do we have visibility of that on our projects to date? And do we have visibility of that across all our projects? Wouldn't it be cool if we could analyze all the consultants to understand which consultants instigate most change on projects and why? As well as risks is another one that we will be able to predict in the future by categorizing and standardizing our risk management process on our projects. We should be able to predict risks rather than us as individuals sitting around a table trying to remember what the risks were on previous projects. And this will ultimately result in us providing more accurate information to our clients, and much more quickly, I must say. And the data, because it is structured, as I mentioned before, we can begin to automate a lot of it, and that will really have an interesting impact on our profession, especially our profession. We can see it on the design profession as well. Automated design is becoming more and more popular on projects now in the international market, and it's just a case of large companies writing the code for this, but before this can happen, we need to think data. So structuring our data, everything we have just discussed in this presentation, we need to consider really for our old projects. And this is to say, if you look internally in your organization, you have a wealth of data available to you. It's just that no one knows where it is. but it's there because of all the projects we've completed in our organizations over the last number of years. And for some of you over the last decades, all of that information is there. So it's either an Excel or PDF or in many other different types of format. Now, what if we could convert that non-structured data into standardized formats, like, for example, ICMS, and then input it into a database? If we were able to do that, we would be able to analyze all of that information from a cost perspective. Again, it's rudimentary, it's quite simple. And then potentially map our national standards to international standards, so we have accessibility to other cost information, BCIS, for example. Once we do that, suddenly we have a hell of a lot of information available to us that is digitized, that is in a digital format that we can analyze. And then we're just adding our future information to that as we go along. Yes, of course, there's a cost associated with it, but the benefits, I would say, completely outweigh that. And in the future, machine learning as well will help us with this. If we can standardize this information, we can teach machines to do this for us. But we have hit the end of our presentation today on the kind of introduction to what we will be discussing on the BIM Bites series. If any of you have your phones there, just open up your camera and you can click here. My phone number links to LinkedIn. We talk a lot about this type of stuff on LinkedIn. We have been over the last number of years, and we have a lot of videos available for it. It's just on discussions, and we really like talking to people, especially on your experiences and the challenges that you're having on your current projects, past projects, with your clients, even simple stuff internally, how we deal with the first steps of digitizing some of the workflows. So please reach out, and of course the next series of BIM Bites will become available, so you guys will be able to follow that series. And as Ruth mentioned, the videos will be uploaded to the SCSI as well for download. But I think we can potentially open it up to questions if anybody's interested. Ruth, do you want to mediate that? Or
Absolutely, Ross. So we have a question in from Jim, and just before I read that out, if anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask their questions, or equally if you want to pop it in the chat box, we can read them out for you if your audio is not working. So Ross, Jim had asked if you can provide a list of standards such as ISO 19650, for the desktop study.
We'll be talking about that in one of the BIM Bites. Actually, is standards. I don't know if the next one is on 19650, but I can for sure come back on it. We will be providing a list of standards, especially from the QS's perspective, I would say. ISO 19650 is great. It's an information structure standard, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't standardize or describe how you would standardize the QS's workflow. For example, how do you integrate the 5D process into a BIM execution plan? Probably not available because no one has actually written it. All BIM execution plans to date have been written by designers on their side. So we as a discipline, we've work to do here in order to be able to prepare those standards. But there is stuff available like ICMS, International Construction Measurement Standards, as a standard cost breakdown structure for your cost estimates and cost plans. More than likely in the next number of years, the national building standards will be replaced by ICMS, I would say. But maybe there's someone on the call that can argue that point for me, but I can't see why it wouldn't. If ICMS is the standard, the RICS and the SCSI are pushing from a global perspective. But James, yes, we can come back.
Great, Ross, thanks very much for that. I look forward to that list in due course. You mentioned there about the ICMS, if I just may ask very briefly, do you know offhand if ARM5 is heading towards that particular structure, or in particular the National Standard Building Elements, are they moving to align with ICMS?
There's no confirmation on that yet, I'd say, Jim. We haven't seen or have eyes on ARM5 yet, so we don't know what changes have been made to that. We believe that it's going to be available early next year. I don't know if there's anybody on the call on the committee that can confirm that. It is my opinion. Oh, Mary, is that you?
Yeah,
Hello,
sorry.
Mary.
Hi, Ross. Could I just come in there? The SCSI has just released a document, the National Building Elements. So the mapping of the National Building Elements to the ICMS, so that's just been released. It's literally hot off the press, last week. So what's happening is they're doing another document, which I expect will be produced. It's already in the final stages, and that's really ICMS 3 explained for the Irish jurisdiction. So that's already been done. It's just literally the final stage. So that should be completed as well. Now the OGP have also done the mapping of the documents. Their documents have been mapped, but they haven't released them yet. Now that they are completed, but they have not yet been released. So I expect they will be released very soon as well. So there is actually a phenomenal amount of work being done. It's just not been really, all of it has not yet been released.
So what I'd say there, Jim, perhaps we can do something with the SCSI to make these documents available through the BIM Bites portal or whatever. We'll look into that and come back, because these are interesting questions. If people aren't aware of these standards, maybe we can use the platform of the SCSI to allow people to get access to these standards.
Well, some of them are actually on the SCSI website right now as we speak. So it's just a question of knowing they're on it, really, more than anything else. That's
Ross, thank you for that. I just saw there recently that the standards are on the society website. But like that, again, if they could be brought in as part of the BIM Bites program at a particular time, it would be a nice kind of fit, if you like, with the latest standards and the ICMS and the National Standard Building Elements, ARM5, and everything we're talking about here, ISO, etc., just to bring it into the loop here. And it would be added value for the program.
Now, my understanding is the ARM5 will be published early next year. I'm saying the first quarter just to give them some time, but also that will be as you know, it's going to be digitized, and it's also going to be free to all members unless you want a hard copy, and then you've got to pay for that. But it takes into consideration ICMS, it takes into consideration Mother Met's construction. So it is future proofed insofar as it can be, and it does look forward, and it does integrate a lot of the information. So that's where that one is at the moment.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, thanks, Ross. Thank you.
No bother.
Anybody else? Questions?
Just throw your hand up. Throw your hand up there, or just jump on.
So while we're waiting for people to jump on, I've just popped the link in the chat box there for the explanation for the ICMS standards there that Mary was referencing. And we will have a link going out to everybody at the start of next week with access to the portal that we have set up for the BIM Bites program. So we'll share all of the updates there as well, Ross, that you're mentioning.
Excellent.
Just to mention, Ruth, that's actually for ICMS to explain, the one you probably have put on the link. The ICMS 3 is not, it's just going through the final process. So I expect it to be in November, or sorry, late November, early December. So that's actually for ICMS 2.
Perfect. Thanks, Mary.
Just for everybody, ICMS 2 is the cost element, and ICMS 3 brought in LCA, so carbon. So these are available on the RICS's website as well anyway, as documents, and they explain them pretty well. But in terms of what you mentioned, Mary, about in Irish context, hopefully we'll get them by the end of the month. That would be great. And just while people are having a think there, but please jump in if you have any questions. The big challenge that we often come across is Ross, we've been hearing about BIM for over a decade now, and it's not happening on the projects. Clients aren't requesting it because of the cost of it. And I would absolutely agree that initially there's an additional cost associated with transitioning into more digital processes, because you'll have an overlap from the traditional way of working into the new digital kind of workflow, and you'll have learning. So when I mean by learnings, trial and error. It takes you to make mistakes to understand which best suits your process and which best suits the project and client and so on and so forth. So we're kind of hoping that the new mandate coming out next year will really drive our industry on as a whole. The Danes did it, and I'll reflect to them, because that's where our experience is. They brought out their first BIM mandate in 2008, and they have 3 revisions so far. That's 14 years now of digital project delivery. We're starting really as an industry as a whole. I know there's lots of companies that are doing it internally themselves, and they do it in order to facilitate maybe their private sector clients. But as an industry as a whole, from the public sector standpoint, we're really starting next year. It's our first step. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop. Next year only for the projects over 100 million euro, but in the next 3 years that value comes down. So we'll be catching more and more projects within this new way of working, you know. Yeah, Jim.
Ross, thank you. Just a quick question there. You make reference to this new BIM mandate coming out next year. Just briefly, what is it?
So
what's the title?
Yeah, the OGP have prepared, I guess it's a suggestion paper for government on BIM, ICMS, and LCA, so carbon. So what that states is that over the next 5 years, we'll see all public projects. Next year, it'll be projects over 100 million euro. The following year, and don't quote me on this, it's available online, and we'll stick the link maybe in the chat here as well, and up on the BIM Bites section of the SCSI. Next year, 100 million from 1st of January 2024. All projects will need a BIM execution plan, will need to be in line with the BIM standards that they have they're applying. All cost will need to be in ICMS reporting format, and all projects will need an LCA life cycle assessment, so a carbon calculation done on them. The following year, that threshold drops to 50 million, and then over the next 4 years, it drops down to, and I think the lowest threshold is 1 million. And that's all government projects that will happen on. So it's going to affect all of us here, I think, because ultimately we all work on government projects, and if we don't, those projects will drive that development as an industry as a whole, we believe.
So Ross, it sounds a bit like what happened in the UK for public procurement by April 2016, I think it was, that the design teams and the tier 1 contractors had to be BIM enabled. Yeah. Otherwise you don't get a chance to quote for the projects.
Yeah, the only challenge is that in the UK, like BIM level 2, for example, it really wasn't policed, if you like. That's a very strong word, of course, because we want to be moving on as an industry for the better of the industry, and we don't need to be policed. But BIM level 2 in the UK came out as a suggestive process. You should do this, but it wasn't really mandated. So government bodies didn't really have to take it on board. So it wasn't really done. So we're hoping that 1st of January this year, at least our industry here will take up a bit of a different mantle on it, because the value it creates, we can see it, as I mentioned, in Denmark, in terms of the efficiencies of design delivery and better quality in design information and the analytics. So hopefully we can get there.
Could I just come in there, Ross?
Sure, Mary.
Yeah, it's actually 20 million by January 2025 for the design team. And so for the contractors, July 2025, so anything greater than 20 million, which is most of the contracts, actually. You know, there's a huge volume of contracts fit in there. And then everything less than 1 million, again, for the design team, again, it'll be July 2027. And for the contractor, it'll be January 2028. So in other words, everything is going to be BIMmed, but it doesn't mean everything is going to have a 3D model. But what it does mean is we're going to follow the process insofar as we need to follow the process for whatever the project we have. So it's really horses for courses for whatever areas we need it. So it really goes from 100 million to 20 million, and then 10 million again in 2025 July. It actually separates the design team from the contractor. There's only 6 months of a difference between them. But again, and it goes down rapidly by, July of 2026 is 5 million. So it doesn't give us much time. It really only gives us to January 2025 as designers, and 20 million, and that's not that far away.
No, and I would say also that we can't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight. There's a huge learning process here, and it's going to be trial and error over the next 5 to 7 years in order to get this work. But the only way we can move forward as an industry is that government drive and lead the process. If we allow the private sector to do it, all we have is disparity between what's good quality, what's bad quality. There's no baseline in it. So we're hopeful for it anyway. That's all I can say.
Well, I think if you look at the OGP, they have a very good program for the next coming year. So they are going to take a very large role in all of this, in even the consultants' fees and you know, with the mandates and with how they want things done. So watch this space when it comes to the OGP. Yeah.
And you can already see some of the public authority works coming out, requirements for the quantity surveyors needing LCA experience and being able to deliver their carbon calculations. We're going to see more on ICMS for the QSs and being able to then integrate into the projects in terms of that digital project delivery we mentioned in the presentation. So no, super exciting times, I think.
I suppose the good thing about the SCSI is they will be in conjunction with the other bodies, the RIAI and the EI. They will be doing a lot of seminars and workshops for the ICMS. So basically, I suppose in a nutshell, we've done the mapping documents, we've done the ICMS explained, so they will be doing the CPD then as well and seminars. So it's to help people get on board faster and to make it much easier for the transition period.
Yeah. Ross, I was just going to add there very briefly, it might be an opportunity for the liaison committee for the construction industry, you know, where the various constituent bodies that would come together and again promote this whole area of the new BIM mandate, etc.
Yeah.
And training for contractors and so forth.
Yeah. Most of the outwardly messaging happens. You'll get it on LinkedIn anyway if you follow the right groups. And the information is available. If you Google it, you'll find the articles and what information has been written on it so far, I would say. So it is available.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks very much, everybody. I think time is upon us. I guess our next one is Monday, Ruth.
That's right, Monday at 2. So you've received the links to you, but we'll also send them out so they're top of your inboxes as well ahead of Monday. Thanks a million, Ross, for today and for all your questions.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon, and
thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.